Welcome back in Game Day. SportsRadio.com. Bogie Wood with you on this Friday morning. Joined now by Mike Bernard from OTM Sports out in Las Vegas. Mike, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Coach. How about yourself?
Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. Getting ready to get off these shows and go hit the golf course this morning.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
Always good.
Always good, no doubt about it. Especially that's the best way to start your weekend is on the golf course. Looks like the Jim Harbaugh thing is kind of laid to bed, so to speak, up in Michigan. Do you think this affects their chances of going to the playoffs? Do you think that obviously, like a player, you don't want to lose your head coach for game day, but at the same time, this Michigan football team's pretty salty. I really don't know how much of an impact it's going to have.
Right. I think the only negative impact it's going to have on them is if they were to lose an overtime game to Ohio State or a 1-point game, that I don't think the committee would put them in like they did last year when they had the two Big Ten teams. Other than that, I think, you use the word galvanized and, strengthen or get them focused. Now they have the chip on their shoulder. They're already a dominant team. And now they have that chip on their shoulder, us against the world.
Yeah, and they took every shot that Penn State could give them last week. And again, James Franklin came up short in a big game yet. Again, what's he now, 3-17?
Versus top 10 teams, right?
Yeah, and and they survived in a very hostile environment against a team that was jacked up, that had to put all their eggs in the basket, and so to speak. And Michigan walked out of there. I'm interested to see how they react to the final news, and knowing now, I think one of the things that's going to help them is knowing there's finality to all this. They know because the Big Ten said, okay, investigation's over with. You sit out and this thing goes away. And so I think knowing that that's the end result, I think that helps them also mentally.
Yeah, I do too. And, the most impressive thing to me about that win in Happy Valley was for about 2 hours of real time, they didn't throw a pass. And Penn State's defense is solid, and they just ran it and ran it and ran it. And kudos to the offensive coordinator, because, he could have gone and went to his little laminated page like all these other OCs do. Yep. But he said, hey, we've got the lead. Our you can't score on us. And it was definitely a throwback, but it also kind of showed you what Jim Harbaugh would have done as well.
That's right. That is right. Okay, let's move on to this week's games. Number 1, Georgia at number 18, Tennessee. That's the 3:30 SEC game, 3:30 Eastern time, 2:30 Central on CBS. Both these teams were involved in steamroll games last week. Top-ranked Bulldogs, they're coming in at 10-0 now. They made Ole Miss look silly, 52-17. The Vols themselves, they just look silly. Missouri just wiped the field with them, 36-7. Tennessee's not having the stellar year that a lot of folks thought they would have. Georgia, they're just being Georgia right now. Overtook Ohio State in the college football playoff rankings. Double-digit favorites as they go into Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, Coach, the longest win streak in the SEC is 28. Alabama did it twice, I believe 78-80, then around that 92 span, right. 92 year. So this game, Georgia's going for number 28, and the Vols would love to end that streak. And here's another streak. First of all, going back to Tennessee and Missouri, that game, I believe, was 13-7 at halftime, and then they just got steamrolled.
Yep.
Tennessee's won 14 straight home games. So, something's going to give here. The point spread tells me Georgia, but, I'm going to pass on it.
Number 5, Washington at number 11, Oregon State. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kick on ABC. Michael Penix, he's emerged as the present Heisman favorite, you could say. Been impressive the last 2 weeks versus USC and Utah. The Beavers could be the Huskies' biggest test, though, to date. They've lost 2 games by a total of 6 points. Both of those games are on the road. Washington, of course, I've said it all along. If they win out, they're going to the college football playoffs. A lot of people don't believe me, but they are. But could the pressure of November spoil those plans for the Huskies? A lot of people think so because the Beavers are actually favored at home against UW.
Yeah, and this is a perfect spot for November to throw chaos because Oregon State, they're unbeaten at home. All their wins were by double digits. We've already seen Washington have trouble getting past inferior teams. And, the Beavers -1, I think the public's going to bet Washington here. And if it goes to Washington favorite, I think I'll have a position on Oregon State.
8:00 p.m. Eastern kick on Fox is going to be number 7, Texas versus unranked Iowa State. Now, usually we don't talk about ranked teams playing unranked teams, but this is kind of, I don't want to say unique because it's happened before. But the Longhorns, they're one blown defensive coverage away from being undefeated and right in the middle of the playoff picture. As a matter of fact, if they were undefeated right now, they would probably, like Washington, control their playoff aspirations. But they don't now. But if they win out, they still got a chance to get in. I think the Longhorns had the best win of the year by anyone when they went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama all the way back in week 2. But the last couple of weeks, they've struggled against K-State and TCU. The Cyclones, though, coming in, Iowa State's won 4 out of the last 5. Texas is only favored by a touchdown on the road versus this unranked team. But does anyone remember Mike Gundy and the Oklahoma State Cowboys getting ready, punching their ticket to the national championship game? Going to bring something special to the Hokies, to the world. Just listen. They go to Ames, night game, things happen. This is chip shot field goal, overtime, and Iowa State puts a hole in that balloon. Could the same thing happen this week for the Longhorns?
Yeah, that was yes, sir. That was a Friday night game, and it created the Alabama LSU rematch that year. Right. And Texas is number 7. They're going to play a night game in Ames. Their last 2 games, you mentioned their struggles. They've been outscored 36-6 in the fourth quarter in those 2 games. And Iowa State, look, they're 6-4. But they are in a 4-way tie for second place in the Big 12 at 6-4 overall. Texas is favored by 7.5. Iowa State excels in these type of spots, and they can still alter and even alter the Big 12 title game, or actually play in it if they get this win here. And Texas, with the injuries at quarterback and other positions, might be a tough spot for the Longhorns.
Hey, another game I want to mention to you that catches my interest is number 23 and number 25 going against each other. Kansas State going to Lawrence playing Kansas. Both these teams come in at 7-3. Now, the Wildcats, they have Iowa State left, and the Jayhawks have to go to Cincinnati. But this game determines a lot. Bragging rights, helps recruiting, bowl positioning. And 8-3 sounds a lot better than 7-4 going into the last week of the season. And, a lot of people around the country, they don't give these 2 teams credit for how far they've come under the present head coaches. But, even playing in Lawrence right now, Kansas not getting the respect as K-State's favored a little bit.
They're a big favorite now because Kansas, their last game, they finished the game with their 3rd-string quarterback. Of course, right. Jason Bean is probably one of the top 2 or 3 backup quarterbacks in all of college football, and he's been having to start several games. He gets injured. Their 3rd-string guy comes in. The 4th-string guy, which I believe might be Purdy's brother, or maybe I'm getting the teams mixed up. But I was surprised to see that K-State's won 14 straight over Kansas because Kansas went to the Orange Bowl back in, 08?
Yeah, Mark Mangino.
Sir?
With Mark Mangino leading the hymn. Yep.
That's right. So K-State's on them. That coach, this line's gone up to 9.5. So that tells me that Kansas will be playing a third and or fourth string quarterback. So unless I get more information, I'm going to pass on this game. But right now, frankly, if it's going to be a third or fourth string guy, and the way K-State, they're playing like a bully at times, the teams that are inferior to them, they are blowing their doors off. So I'd have to lean K-State, but I don't want to lay a big number on the road here.
All right, Mike, man, we appreciate your time as always on Friday mornings, and we'll be back a little bit later on in the day to talk a little NFL. And then again on Monday, recapping everything. And you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Coach. You do the same.
All right, coming back here on Game Day Sports Radio right after the break, we'll be with Coach Max Howell.